Welcome to episode 4. We've seen how MoCap fits in the pipeline. We cleaned up some motion capture, and we talked a little bit about how important motion capture is in production. But now it's time to actually see some real-world applications in the form of an interview. And in this episode, we have none other than Goodbye Kansas, which is one of the top motion capture studios in the world right now, working in amazing games. I've worked with them a bunch of times in different studios, Star Wars Battlefront, Battlefield, and I know that they've worked in Horizon and most recently on the latest Indiana Jones game. So I think there's no better studio for us to pick their brain a little bit about how they go about capturing motion capture, cleaning up motion capture, and dealing with clients to make sure that some of the stuff that we talk here in this mini course is actually as valid as I say it is to you guys, and they put it in their own words so we can talk about the pros, the cons, the challenges that they have as well, which will give you another perspective on what goes on behind the scenes. So without further ado, let's go chat with Goodbye Kansas. Okay. Welcome, Goodbye Kansas, I should say. Anton, Sam, when we were together, Fred as well. We actually kind of I think it's the first time that we're seeing each other. Am I correct?
Yeah.
We haven't really worked together. Nice to have you here, though.
Thank you.
Nice to be here.
Yeah, it's really cool. So, as mentioned in the introduction of the video, this is all about like having a perspective, a secondary perspective on motion capture, and nothing better than Goodbye Kansas. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves, but just from my perspective, quickly, I highly admire these guys because they do some of the best work. To me, at least, I think it's the best work in the world when it comes to motion capture studios. I work with them heavily over the years. They are not only amazing at what they do, but they're incredibly friendly. And the work that they do, like, is just so clean. So it makes our lives as animators so nice. So please introduce yourselves if you don't mind, and then we can get going with the questions.
Thanks, Harvey. It's going to be tough to do a better introduction than that. I'm just very happy to hear that you have that opinion of us. And,
Absolutely.
It's something that we pride ourselves in, and we really strive to always make sure that what we deliver is of that quality. But yeah,
It is.
My name is Anton Söderlund. I'm an executive producer and in the management team of Goodbye Kansas. I've been with the team since the very start of it. And my kind of background now more an EP for everything that we do, but in the beginning of my career in this industry, I was mainly focused on motion capture and performance capture and everything connected to it.
Nice.
That's me.
Nice one. Sam, you want to go next?
Yeah, Samuel Tyskling. I'm a motion capture supervisor here at Goodbye Kansas. Been working here since 2007, so for quite a while now. The MoCap team is fairly small, so I help out where I'm most needed, but my main focus is on the shoots and the technical solution that we have going on stage, and some of the pipeline stuff of delivering high quality MoCap data to our clients.
Nice one.
Cool. And I'm Fred Justin. So I'm head of animation at GBK. So I've only joined them at around 2022. Before that, I was at Access Studios, head of animation over there. Before that, I was a supervisor there. I spent a very large chunk of my career working in South Africa, across anything from TV series to feature films, and spent some time in Canada. And then I got my first experience in motion capture coming to Access Studios in Scotland.
Oh, yeah.
I was just thrown into the deep end there, and I had to plan a MoCap shoot. And then from there on, we just did a lot of cinematics. And then from there, I came over to Goodbye Kansas. But yeah, I mean, for me as well, it's been really good joining these guys and trying to kind of live up to the quality that they've been delivering over the years.
Amazing. Yeah, I worked at Access as well, so I know exactly what you mean about we get thrown in the deep end. They were hardcore, unfortunately. Fortunately, they're all around. But
yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think it's worth mentioning as well for anyone who doesn't know more extensively what Goodbye Kansas are. We have kind of an internal studio for motion capture and performance capture. We do scanning, and that's a service that we both sell externally. So we'll partner up different game studios or other animation studios or movie productions. But then we also do end-to-end productions for trailers and animation projects, as well as VFX for film and TV. So we kind of an umbrella. So we go on a tangent, like, Harvey, please guide us back to where you want us to be.
Exactly. Which I think is brilliant. This is exactly why I think it's so good to speak with you guys, because you do everything. It's not just gameplay or just cinematics. You do a bit of everything. So you have like mocap actors as well. That's good. And then you have like performance actors as well. It's actually pretty awesome. Cool. So I think we can start with the question. Okay. If you guys are ready. I don't think the question is going to be too grilling, but hopefully it's going to clarify to a lot of people out there, like what goes on behind the game. So maybe you can start with how does that typical day at GBK?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, we're quite a small team, so it depends a little bit on where we are in production. We basically have a few of our team members divided into the stage crew, and then some more focused on the post stuff. But when we are not shooting, basically the stage crew will either prepare for the next shoot or help out in posts. So
That's great.
yeah, it's and being like a third party, MoCap provider, on top of doing our internal shoots and stuff, we have a lot of different productions, reaching us from all kinds of different ends of the world. So
I can imagine.
it's
Yeah, because you guys are renowned pretty much everywhere. Everybody knows about Goodbye Kansas, at least at this point, must be that way. So, like, one of the questions that I have, a follow-through question, is that you probably have to pick and choose the projects that you want to be part of, depending on not only how fun they are, but also who's involved in the project as well, right? I mean, if you can speak about that, that would be really, really good. About how do you go about selecting what projects do you want to be involved in?
I mean, that's a big part of the role I have, to kind of figure out what projects are we engaging in, how do they sit, the schedule, where do they overlap, where don't they? And part of that challenge is also, of course, like when we're doing the end-to-end projects, which includes a lot of capture services as well. But those projects kind of go for months or half a year or even a year in some cases. And then of course that means that we have a lot of capacity when the capture team is done with their delivery within such a project. And that's where we want to make sure that we have external clients that can just come in and do a scan session or a longer performance capture shoot, or if it's gameplay, like we don't really have any preference. Like, we love the variety of shooting everything because I think it keeps us on our toes as well, and we need to refine our processes. And we, when dance cards became a thing, we were part of like shooting a lot of that, and that allowed us to like understand, okay, this is where the industry is looking right now, and then all those kind of advancements. So we really like to do that. And then when it comes to kind of how we prioritize, it's just that kind of production schedule puzzle. Where does it fit in? Have we worked with this client before? Is it an animation director or an animation lead that we know how they work? Then obviously that's going to make the whole production easier for us, and they're also going to know what to expect in terms of delivery from us. So that's definitely a benefit and a factor if there's ever like a challenge on, we want to shoot this week. Oh yeah, we also want to shoot this week. And we have to make that call. Like, we always try to, like, would you be okay shooting later or earlier? Could we move that around and make it fit? But yeah, so that, it's a fine balance of all of those elements.
Spinning plates, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Constant game of Tetris of people.
Yeah, I can imagine. Because one of the things that I admire about you guys the most is the fact that, because I remember working with you guys at DICE specifically, and especially on the Star Wars games and the Battlefield, and always felt like you guys were always available for the customer, right? And it's incredible to me because 100% you guys had many other customers to actually deal with, right? but it felt to me that you guys were always available. And whenever you said, I would say, or we would ask, like, can we make this week? Because otherwise we're going to be late. You'd be like, okay, let's shuffle some things around and then we'll make it work. And it's very different from other mocap studios that I've dealt with, that like this is almost like the opposite, right? Like you kind of have to like work around their schedule instead of the other way around. And I think that goes a long way to basically know that we can go to you guys because you guys will be there for us, right? It becomes like a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to hear you have that experience, because that's not what we talk about. Like, we want to be that extension of the team, and we want to, we pride ourselves in all the projects that we do, and we want them to end up successful. So
it feels that way.
That's good.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, now that we know more or less how you actually go ahead and actually kind of like select certain clients and work with the clients, can you walk us through, like, I know it's really complex, but can you walk us through the process of capturing and processing motion capture for specifically for novices, for anybody that doesn't know anything about like capturing motion capture? How do you guys go about actually, capturing it?
Yeah, speaking from like a technical perspective, at GBK we have an optical mocap system. There are many different methods of actually doing mocap, but here we have an optical mocap system capturing passive markers. So this means that we capture our data using reflective taped covered rubber balls, effectively. And to do that, we have a lot of cameras mounted around the perimeter of our stage, who shine out light and see the bounced back light and triangulate the position of each marker. So the key to being successful in mocap is making sure you have a good studio, like you're actually being able to capture good high quality optical data with as few gaps as possible and as little jitter noise as possible as well. Because the better data you're able to capture early on, it will kind of you will reap the benefits throughout the pipeline. So that's the first step, and then the right after you've captured the data, we have a step called tracking, where we go through the data and clean it up. So making sure each marker belongs to the marker set that it's supposed to belong to, getting rid of all the gaps that we have, and if there are any shakes or jitters, we clean that up as well. So that's essentially tracking. And then the next step is that we want to transfer this positional 3D data, like the marker data, onto positional and rotational skeleton data. So first you basically map your marker cloud to the model that you want to transfer it to, and then you process all of that. It's called solving. So you basically assign each joint to specific markers, say how much influence they should have, and every actor has different proportions, right? So there's always a little bit of fine tuning you have to do there to make it look just right. But yeah, that's essentially the solving step. And then the last step is kind of like the bare minimum that we do for external clients. It's called retargeting. So it's basically mapping over the animation from our solved skeleton onto the client rigs.
Right.
Yeah.
Really cool.
There's always also the more creative challenge side of the mocap shoot before it happens, because sometimes it's very kind of like late in the day, and the whole plan has to come together very quickly, and you have to get the rigging team to kind of like build the rigs, and you're trying to get the assets and trying to make sure that the correct proportions and stuff, because obviously the closer to the correct proportions are, the better quality it's going to be, or the less work it's going to be for retargeting. And it might be that the client's going to be attending the shoot and they're going to be there for 1 day, so you're going to try and plan everything to the minute for that 1 day.
Yep.
I must say, like, for me, before coming to Goodbye Kansas, like, I've worked with a lot of mocap studios and stuff. And we also worked with Goodbye Kansas back in the day when I was at Access. The quality of data we get from these guys is absolutely insane. even now, like kind of just seeing their attention to detail and how much effort they put into like making sure that everything is as clean and accurate as it can be has been really amazing to see.
Yeah. There's no going back after you actually give it a
Yes.
try for sure.
Yeah.
At least for me. Anton knows this because we actually had to go through at least a couple of not fights, but like having to go through a couple of clients that was difficult to actually kind of like get them to understand the difference between MoCap. Because I think another thing that a lot of studios and people don't understand is that the cleaner the data, the easier it is for everybody down the pipe. It's not just the animation team; it's just everything, implementing things in game and stuff. So like it is worth kind of like spending a little extra to make sure that the data is as clean as possible, especially if you're
Yeah.
actually on a super short, like a deadline and you have to deliver things constantly. It's like you don't get the AAA quality without having AAA mocap, if that makes sense.
No, exactly. And on top of that, also like working with a team that knows how to pre-plan it, because I think there's this common misconception with MoCap that because it's animation, it's easy to change later down the line. And yes, it is. If you have a team of good animators, you can change anything, but there's always going to be a drop of quality. You're always going to get the best result if you plan something to the T and like get it shot.
Completely.
Just shoot it. Like it's going to be a lot quicker. It's going to look better than at the end of the day going into Maya and just changing everything.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. We actually talk about that in the course as well. So that is just kind of like adding extra like weight to what we just discussed as well. And I actually had a follow-up question exactly about that, about what does Goodbye Kansas actually want normally from a client when it comes to the pre-planning, right? Like what happens when, like, we now know that as a studio they want to shoot with you guys. What are some of the requests that you have from a client before the shoot?
There's obviously like a lot of the contractual stuff, the legal stuff, just kind of agreeing on the quote and figuring out exactly what a client wants, so we can align expectations to the point you made earlier, that we want everyone in the team, everyone who's working on the project, to be highly aware of this is the expectations.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to want X amount of seconds after the shoot. They're going to want it retargeted to this rig, or the naming convention is going to be this. So like all those steps. So what we usually do, like in most scenarios, I'm the first point of contact. And I just kind of try to get on a quick call as soon as we've set up an NDA with a partner or the client. And then from there, just kind of hearing them out. Because, even studios or teams that are used to shooting motion capture might not always be fully aware of what they're shooting or what their needs are. So just kind of hearing them out on a first level, like, okay, and then seeing this is something that we can deliver, and then asking all the other questions. And it's not about, trying to push a service on it, but it's more figuring out, like, is this an expectation from you? Do you also want face? Do you also want production audio? Do you also, like, how do you need it delivered? Does it need to be in Motion Builder or Maya, or do you have any other very specific way you want it delivered? And see what that influences the way we set up the project and how we work with the project. And then when that kind of first surface level, just quick discussion and at least a ballpark has been somewhat agreed on, that's when we do a bit of a bigger meeting with the whole team. So we will then start looking at, okay, this is what you want to shoot. This is how we suggest you shooting it. We look at what actors or what stunt people that the talents needed to record data, because an equal amount of detail has to go into that. Like if you're recording something that doesn't look good, it doesn't matter how good the data looks in the end. So it's really like making sure that all of those steps work nicely. And then figuring out, do you want us to lead the scheduling of the shoot day, or are you really familiar with that, so you want to do that and we just follow your lead? We try to be adaptable to both ways there. And then if there needs to be a casting process, we'll activate that, and we'll put some time into that and suggest that. And that could be a first draft could just be, these are people we have worked with before, here's their generic show reels. Or in some cases, we have to arrange proper casting. So we'll bring people into the studio, we'll film them, we'll have them do some of the specific, say that you're shooting a sword fighting game and you want different types of sword fighting. We might have to pull in a lot of talent so they can show off their skills and for that selection to happen. And when all of that kind of logistical setup things are done, that's when we go into the detailed breakdown of everything. What are we calling each shot? Which actor is where? And if there's props needed, if there's set pieces needed, so we can make sure that every single part of our team knows what they're doing.
Okay.
So hopefully we have a client that is prepared, so they would have at least a basic layout of the scene digitally. So then we would ask for that one, so we can build our physical props on stage to be one-to-one with that as well. And a good way of approaching that is to, either we have a briefing call just like you would in live action with a production designer, like this door needs to open, or this door is just a background thing, so we don't have to build it properly. What are the interaction points? What's the function they need to do? Like, do we need a platform that collapses? Okay, how do we build that safe for all the talent on stage, but also how do we build it so that we don't interfere with the data, we don't occlude the data too much. So always that like second aspect of it. It's not just about making the function. It's
of course.
Well, yes, it's the function, but it's the 360 function
of course.
What
A follow-up question on that is, you actually talk a little bit about the metric of it all, like, because I do remember how, like, when I was just started in my first shoot, I never quite understood, even as a young lead animator, like, what is this fuss about making sure that the weapons have a certain size, and can you send us the dimensions of the weapon, and can you tell us if it's 45 degrees or 25 degrees on the ramp? Like, as a young lead, you kind of go, he's just a ramp, but he's not really, right? You can just explain a little bit the metric behind.
Or just a ramp.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the more information we get about the important stuff, like interaction points of a weapon, for example, the more accurate we can build the physical weapon to match the CG model, so that the animator in post have to adjust as little as possible to make the contact points look good and whatnot. But it's not just about that. It's also considering things like Riedel mentioned briefly, like scale or proportion differences. Like, let's say you have a really small actor or actress playing a bigger character, then we need to also consider that when we build the physical props and anything that they interact with during the shoot. And the more time we have to properly plan this out, the better the end result will be in the end as well. And like a ramp, if as another example, like if you have it to the wrong angle, like a very common thing from games is to ask for a very, very steep ramp. But when you actually capture stuff on a very steep ramp, you everything goes super quick normally. Like if you do a run or a slide, like you're done in a beat, so you don't really get much information from it. So we usually suggest that we go a little bit less steep to get more time, and also physical space required to build that is because height is real estate when it comes to mocap. You're usually limited by the height. So if we do a little bit less steep, then we can actually fit in a longer ramp into our volume as well. So even though that might require a bit more of the animator's time, maybe you can speak to that, Friedel, but we usually end up with more good quality data for the animators to work with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, something like a ramp, if it's just a straight ramp, that's usually a bit easier, I think, for the animator to adjust to and stuff. But when the environment becomes very bespoke, like it's very at this angle, then the character would step onto something here. If there's too much variation between that and what the animator will actually have and the actual animation package, it starts just eating up time. It's not impossible to change it, but it's about time and budget. And it's all obviously coming down onto what we can deliver the client, and we want to obviously deliver the best quality we can. So you don't want to lose a full day just making these adjustments and for the animator when you could have just shot it correctly and then just got the scene out a lot faster. But I mean, that's pretty much for the whole shoot. I mean, that comes into play when there's characters running on an environment with the ground being all broken up and everything. It's very hard to plan that on a mocap shoot. So you're going to try and like maybe just get something for the actor to kind of like step to, step onto, step over. And then you're going to try and build your environment around that to try and get the best out of the data. But there is obviously the level of which you can still edit the foot plans and that kind of stuff. Which is all fine. Like there's always this assumption that there's going to have to be a level of editing and stuff. And it's a game of like seeing how much we can minimize it in the actual shoot by just thinking out of the box and planning as well as we can.
Completely. Yeah.
And
Go ahead.
just quickly, sorry. It's very interesting for us being like a third party mocap provider working with a lot of different clients, like the different approaches different game studios have with these things as well. Like some are very like, oh, let's just shoot it on the flat, we'll figure it out in post, whereas others are like very particular, like it needs to be this specific angle, it needs to, move exactly like this. So it's interesting to see. And I guess it depends a little bit on how big their team is in post, how much they can deal with like after the mocap shoot. But it's an interesting observation from us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I found, at least from my experience, that normally the bigger the budget, the more like a la carte you're gonna go, because you have some companies have unlimited budgets, and you're like, we'll just shoot it and see what happens, and then we're going to shoot it again if it doesn't work out. And the lower the budget, the more precise you have to be in order to make the most out of every single money that you invest in that mocap, right? So I've been in both ends, and it's definitely worth kind of like experiencing both to find out that actually the planning on the smaller budget game actually is really beneficial. And it's incredibly beneficial because the amount, as Fred was just saying right now, the amount of like cleanup that you have to do when everything is planned out is so little. When I was doing the Star Wars games or Battlefield games, it was that kind of like vibe of like, we just like try certain things, partly because it was also design. We were designing things, but the fact that we actually had certain things that we could test and then shoot again was liberating, but it was not as precise. So there's definitely both sides of the coin there, which is actually quite interesting to see.
Yeah. And I think interesting on that, I think that kind of goes both ways as far as like if it's high budget and if sometimes you get a client that expects a level of stylization on top of the mocap. And that also gets really expensive because now instead of the budget needing to be in this like very accurate mocap shoot, you need to like go like, okay, we're going to shoot this, but then we're going to have to like figure out how much of that we can actually stylize afterwards in the animation software.
Right.
And that also can go off the rails very quickly if it's not kind of like very well planned. Because obviously, like if you're going to be doing mocap, you want to be doing mocap, and there's a level where you're stylizing it so much that you might as well just be keyframing it.
Yeah.
And then it becomes equally or even more expensive. So it's a bit of a tricky one, kind of like navigating that sometimes with a client that's expecting a more stylized look, because you need to kind of have that very clear discussion and maybe have some examples to show or do some tests. Kind of show this is what your end result's going to look like. Are you happy with this? And they kind of need buy-in from all parties.
Completely. Yeah. No, that's a great point. I think is the fact that you actually kind of like you measure that line between stylization and like realistic, right? And what we've done before, and I think it was with you guys, is that doing 1-day shoots that basically we shoot as much as possible and then see what happens internally. And then within a few months from there, we then shoot again properly if necessary, or we don't shoot anymore because it's not necessary. Yeah. If you just go with a goal of like shooting a 1-month motion capture, because we have done those, it's it might be quite a lot of money wasted. I actually want to like do another follow through there, because I want to talk about actors because I do think is something that people don't think about a lot of the time, especially as a young person doing motion capture, is the amount of effort actors have to go through, especially if you just go and do like a 1 week shoot, for example, right? I don't think people understand that humans are humans and we get exhausted, and then there's a certain limitation that there is to it in order to actually capture a certain amount. So can you guys talk a little bit about how do you guys go about planning that and some of the warnings that you had and things like that?
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes from the experience we have, and having been in some of those nightmare scenarios where we have a full weeks of shoots, we only have one talent, and then it's a locomotion shoot with very heavy motion sets, like a lot of crouching or heavy weapons carrying and stuff like that. And then of course it's going to decrease the level of quality you're getting from the data, because you will see the tiredness. In some cases, that's actually what you want to do. Like we shot for The Walking Dead, for example, and then shooting zombies, like they are tired. So that's a benefit in that case, like do that stuff at the end of the day. But in most cases, you want that like fresh snappiness. Especially if it's gameplay, because that's, as we know, that's so important for how the game feels to play. You want that snappiness, and probably after shoot, you're going to speed things up to adjust it to the animation system you're applying in the game as well. But yeah, what we do is when we have that experience, and we know, like when we get a shot list and we see this is not going to be doable on one person, like we at least going to have two persons. They're going to have to alternate maybe an hour on, an hour off, or can we spread it out if it's a full week and we know there's some just walk cycles not carrying anything, like okay, that's a good breather for them to have, so let's have a section of those in between the heavier things. So it's a lot about finding that balance.
Yeah, managing energy, right? Which is something that people don't think about so much.
Yeah.
I made that mistake like years ago. We had like a shoot of some really heavy weapons, and I asked for really heavy weights to be put on the weapons. And in hindsight, like after a full day of shooting of actors running with these weights, they didn't love me that much. Just saying that.
Yeah, exactly. I had the like a problem that was almost the opposite, but it was almost like I knew that the actors have a limit, and the actor that I was actually directing was actually a performance actor, not a mocap actor, but he was solid, super fit, gym guy, like obviously. And I did ask him, "Are you okay? Are you sure that you actually want to take these 5 days, do it in one go, and that's it? Do you want to like do it over 2 weeks? Perhaps it's going to be exhausting." It's like it's fine, all that stuff. And then by the end of the week, unfortunately, and this is really, really bad, but we had to basically revert to shoot and basically like shoot just like cover stuff on the spot, because he was in crutches in the end. He couldn't move his ankle, like it was basically swollen. And we basically had to do on the spot cover, crouching, standing, like, moving out of cover with one foot. And we could only do one side as well. We couldn't do both sides. So we had to basically do one side and then reverse it in animation. And yet again, another thing that you kind of learn as you do, as you said, Fried, is like you kind of like, sometimes you as a director, you kind of have to say, we have to do it in 2 weeks. like even though the talent perhaps thinks that they can do more. But I do know, for example, with you guys, Anton, and like we have shot 1 week worth of data, male and female, with no problem. And this is because they were mocap actors. They were not performance actors. And there's a massive difference there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't underestimate the what like experience gives you when it comes to the acting step as well. Like if you're shooting games, having actors that understand the lingo just for one is hugely beneficial, I would say. Like, oh, now we're doing an idol, and they just immediately know what you're talking about. Instead of obviously wasting time explaining all of that stuff, as well as the physical requirements that are needed to be able to sustain, the demands of capturing locomotion for an extended period of time as well. So
yeah, it's really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, the data that you're getting is only as good as the actors, so they are hugely important for the end quality.
Yeah, absolutely. They cannot be underestimated. What was the actor that we used to actually shoot for all the battlefield scenes?
Niklas.
Nicholas.
Hansson.
Nicholas.
Yeah.
He is a legend. So the
Yeah.
amount of times
Yeah.
that I would go like to direct Nicholas, because we did it for a couple of projects as well. They would go with a certain idea, and Nicholas would go like, "Have you thought about doing it this way? Because I've done it previously, and I think it would work better. Or in certain games, I do it this way." You as a director, because sometimes your brain is a little bit fried because you've been shooting, like just having somebody that has the experience of gameplay, like even though you know that what you want, it just kind of like brings that extra flavor that all of a sudden you're like, yeah, do that. That's so much
Yeah.
better. It's so
Yeah, and I think that's also, like speaking of him, he is a gamer himself, so he plays a lot. He watches the animations that's in games and like, oh, interesting, they probably did that to kind of solve that issue. He's constantly having that kind of awareness. And actually last week he held a course for a couple of days in our studio. So when
amazing.
we have if we're in between, we're in post on a project, we might have some time on the stage. So what we've done is we've talked to some of the actor unions in the local region and said like, hey, we have this is something we do. We always need, new talent to kind of increase the pool of people that can do that. And what they do is like, when actors are in between, if that's theater or musicals or TV shows or film sets, they have downtime, and then these unions offer courses for them to kind of just expand their knowledge and experience. So we had, I think it was 12 actors who came in, who's fairly established in their own area, but to kind of come in, and Niklas held a 2-day course where he went through, the whole lingo of things, what to think about, what to look for, what to look out for.
That's so cool.
That all, and it becomes a circular kind of thing as well, because then we look at, oh, here's some new talent that we can use. And
of course.
they'll spread the word. So it's just a nice way of being able to give back of that experience that we've built over the years.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Much power to Nicholas. So we have to go through a bunch of questions that I actually haven't gone through, but I knew that this was going to happen because you guys are always amazing. It's always amazing to talk to you guys. But one of the big ones that I should have asked in the beginning was, what are some of the projects that GBK has been involved with over the years? Some of the most notorious ones.
I think we did a summary quite recently, and there's more than 150 projects
150
done by the studio, and then all of that's everything from half a day shoot to 70 shoot days on stage.
It's crazy.
But I think to point out some of the recent year, especially in the gaming industry, like we worked a lot on the Cyberpunk game, so the main marketing beats they had, looking at more kind of in-game projects, or we worked directly with the developer. Horizon Forbidden West was one of our huge projects. It was also shot during COVID, so we had a lot of rules and regulations that we had to follow. It started before COVID, and then COVID happened, so we had to readjust the whole plan and the whole schedule of that project. But that probably stretched over 4 or 5 years of time for us, and about 70 shoot days, and a lot of animation polish on that as well. So that was kind of a big chunk of work for the studio. We really recently have worked a lot on the Indiana Jones and the Great Circle.
Looks great, by the way. Congrats.
Reviews are stunning.
Yeah.
We're celebrating actually tonight with the Machine Games team as well.
Oh, amazing.
So it'd be really nice to.
Because they're in Sweden as well, right?
Yeah,
of course. Makes sense.
And that was also another project that shot through COVID. And it was actors flying from all over the world, coming into the stage, camera team coming in as well. from
Mhm.
external. We had to rent a lot of gear, so that was fun in another ways because they really wanted to replicate a film shoot on the MoCap stage, work with a proper camera team, and
That makes sense, though.
make sure that
Mm,
it is a movie IP, so they
of
wanted to
course.
have that vibe of it. I mean, we worked a lot on the whole Battlefield series, as you know, the Star Wars Battlefront things. What else? There's so many
There's been so many
projects.
things.
Yeah, yeah,
No, but that's a good recap because I think that's impressive enough. Because I remember the Cyberpunk, the cutscenes that you guys made with the cutscenes, right? They were so incredibly polished, like especially with the facial animation things. It's like that was a whole new level. You can tell, like the whole industry was wondering how did they do this? It was so realistic. It didn't feel CG. It felt better than CG. You know what I mean? Like there was no like that third dimension that people feel slightly weird.
yeah.
So yeah, it was
Thank
an
you.
amazing work. Amazing work. A couple like quick fire questions in the beginning. I'd like to finish it off. So for beginners looking into motion capture, right? I know you guys do mostly AAA high quality stuff with the studio, but what kind of gear do you recommend for anybody that wants to, that is more on the indie level or testing the waters with motion capture? What would be some of the tools that you recommend for them to start?
Yeah, I mean, my experience with haptic systems are a bit limited, but from my understanding is that you can achieve really decent quality data using those, and though there are some cheaper options like Rococo and whatnot, where you can capture like full body mocap basically to test it out yourself. So yeah, I would probably recommend something like that. Taking the step to do optical, not only do you require like a bigger space, but it's, you need to invest in multiple cameras, which is expensive. And like, even if you do buy the gear, if you don't do it correctly, like it's easier to do a bad job, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like it's easier to do mistakes because there's a lot of moving targets there. So yeah, haptic is probably would be
A
my
good way to
suggestion there.
start. Yeah, I think so. I do think it's really interesting because I think when people go through that journey of like seeing something like the phone that you don't have to have any suits and then the suits, and then you start cleaning up the data, you quickly realize why the optical systems exist and why you need so many cameras and why you need the space and why it needs to be a specific space. You guys had like an amazing space in a church with the Goodbye Kansas logo on the bottom. Or you still have it, I guess. But that space, you can tell it was built bespoke for motion capture, like the heights and the size and stuff. So it's really cool to see. And then,
We've actually had the pleasure of moving
oh, you did?
from the church. We built a whole new building.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was a big project for us, just to kind of from ground up design, everything from power, ventilation,
Wow.
where do we want the cable channels to be, and kind of optimizing the room for us. Like obviously we had the walls of the building to
Yeah.
adhere to, but really to optimize the space. So,
And,
yeah,
and
you should come
is that
visit.
is that closer to Hammarby or is it still
Yeah, that's in Stockholm, so it's in Hammarby Sjöstad.
Hammarby?
So,
Okay, I love
yeah.
Hammarby. For anybody that wants to start a career in motion capture, what will be your recommendation as a last question? The big question.
Yeah, like for us, when searching for new talent, it's very hard to find experienced people.
Mm.
So what we look at more is people who show interest and who are like who specifically have the interest in motion capture. So that kind of that quality is more important to me than necessarily, hey, I've tested out a mocap system here or there. Like the drive is what I'm looking at more, and the working on a motion capture set. It's not only your technical expertise, but you also need to interact with a lot of people. You need to talk to clients. You need to talk to talent.
It does make sense. Yeah. Mhm. Well, exactly. That's cool. And it's not only like if you actually want to interested in mocap, it's not only about the animation or the capture as well, right? I mean, there's a whole team like Anton and Sam and there's a whole team that it goes behind the motion capture, and there's people that spend years, if not all their careers, working with motion capture by assisting or directing or doing a bunch of different things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Cool. Well, that was amazing. Thank you so much, guys, for taking the time. It's been great. I hope people like take a lot from this because you guys have so much experience. And yeah, keep on doing amazing things. I'm sure you will.
Well, thank you for
No,
having
thank
us.
you.
It's been a pleasure.
No problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
See you guys. Bye
Have a
bye.
lovely-
Cool. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
So I hope you enjoyed that interview. I had a lot of fun talking with the guys at Goodbye Kansas. They're absolutely brilliant every time that we talk, and an absolute pleasure to have them here sharing with all of you. So in episode 5, we're talking a little bit about the story of motion capture, where we've been, where we're at, where we're going, and we're going to close the series on episode 5, unfortunately. So without further ado, let's get to it.